Hello, my loves. We're gonna dive into a video today about non-monogamy and if it's right for you as a woman, by a woman. I am not only a woman's somatic intimacy coach, integrated female embodiment guide, and pelvic health educator, but I have about 10 years of non-monogamy under my belt. So I am not new to this. I am true to this. It is a subject that I really, really love to talk about under the right circumstances, which means that I really love to have this conversation with people who are ready to approach it with curiosity and open-mindedness. And the reason I am making a video particularly on this topic is because it's the question that I get the most, and I have also experienced my own personal relationship with this question. So this is going to be more of a conversation rather than let's do a bullet point list of checking over all of these things. Some of my other videos have that and it works really great. I think this just needs to be a conversation, and so I will start speaking a bit from a personal level. I said I'm 29 now, so I have I think since 18 I haven't been in any actual official monogamous relationship, but I'll say the last 5 years are when I really started to approach non-monogamy with an ethical, conscious approach. Before, it was very much me coming into adulthood, coming into womanhood, trying to understand love and relating, and with that, what it looked like for me was I was 18, I was 19, and I just remember being being in college, leaving my family, and meeting a lot of boys, and being like, oh my goodness, like all of these boys that I am meeting and connecting with, they offer different things. And it also felt like at the time I was going through, right, I was 18 leaving home, so it was like I am claiming my freedom, and I think that was part of it. Like, I'm gonna also claim my freedom in relationship and dating, and that means like I'm not gonna be tied down to anything. You can't tell me anything. And I really am so grateful for this time period in my life, because as I look back on it now, that was really me coming into like what I wanted as an adult woman in intimacy and what really felt true for me. And I also want to add to this that I I come from a Christian background, from a religious background. I was raised that way. I was raised in a very small conservative town surrounded by a lot of Amish people. And so obviously, like, I am a sexuality coach, I'm bisexual, I'm non-monogamous, and coming into these parts of myself when a lot of my upbringing is telling me something different has been a huge journey for me. And so of course my mind and what my culture and my religion was telling me, that question will come up. It's like, is it right? Not only is it right for me, but is it right? But at the same time, when I was 18, 19, 20, and I got into spirituality, and I was reading these different books, and I was going deeper into yoga and meditation at the time, I couldn't shake, number one, I couldn't shake the fact that for me, like, love was something that I really, in my heart, was like, love is something that can expand. It's infinite, right? Love is not something that I am seeking in relationship because I don't have it in myself. Love is this like exuberating force coming from within me. When I think there's a Rumi quote that I can't remember exactly the quote, but it's it's the one about like breaking down the barriers to let love in. I don't know, it's not like that, but if you know, you know. But essentially it was like, yeah, the way that I am experiencing love, like, of course it's not like pie. Okay, you have a little bit of love for this person and therefore you don't have enough for somebody else. And I also knew that, like, if I ever wanted to be a mother, like that wasn't going to be the case with my children either, that okay, now I have 4 kids and by the 4th one I love them all less. I think actually the opposite. I really felt in my heart that. Of course, that goes into the conversation of, well, what about time? What about energy? Totally. Like that, maybe we'll get here in this video, maybe for a different video, but that's true. But at the core of it for me, it was how I really viewed love. And I also will say that one of the things that I work with my female clients in coaching is exploring core desires. And core desires are essentially the reason that we go to sex and intimacy. So that would be like, in sex, I want to feel taken. I want to feel ravished. I want to feel used. I want to feel worshipped. I want to feel devoured, whatever, you know. But getting to the root feeling of what you're really wanting, and oftentimes, most of the time, this is connected to our childhood, and they're pretty stagnant. I mean, life is ever changing, but those tend to be, for most people, like very consistent throughout our life. And for me, like this is super, very personal, but like I was like having, most of the time when I was like in a moment of turn on, or I was like, okay, I'm gonna lay out in the grass and I start to fantasize, it always was involving like, I have a boyfriend, and then he goes out and he has sex with someone else and he comes home to me and our love gets even stronger. Like those were the daydreams and the fantasies that I was having, you know? And then, I don't want to skip ahead too much, but this is really important, right? These moments of when I feel open, and when I feel, because this is some of the best advice that I can give you about this. In the moments of openness and turn on and fantasy and desire, like where do you go to? That's one thing. And then also when you're anchored in your body and your values in life, where do you go to? Because for me, both of those things were like, well, when I'm anchored in my values and how I experience life, love is infinite and ever expanding. And also in my moments of fantasy and turn on, like these fantasies or these what's playing out is like definitely not like finding us one soulmate and getting married and having happily ever after. It just wasn't that for me, which is interesting, right? Because that is what most of the majority of the friends, the women that I grew up with have done and are doing. So that's when the mind really starts to come in and is like, is this right for me? Because there's a lot of people that say it's not, and because this is not what most people are doing. However, there's something pulling me, there's something stronger here, right? So when I look back, it was, those things are very prominent for me. And the other thing that I will say is like, yes, going back to like, I'm 18, 19, I'm in college, I'm like very like dating people, getting like super, very much in the energy of like extroversion, of like, give me more from all these people and I'm gonna take from it and I'm gonna use it for my life, you know what I mean? Not necessarily codependence, but just the exuberance of that extroversion. And then when I fell in love, when I was like 20 or something like that, this was like the first relationship where I remember we started to fall in love, and we were like starting to be more intimate. And I remember saying to him one day, like, you can still have sex with other girls. Like, I remember saying that to him and being like, what is he gonna say? So in my case, like, what I want to say about this is, in my case, I tended to be the one, looking back, that was initiating that, right? I definitely talked to a lot of women where they're like, oh, I'm in my monogamous relationship with my partner and he wants to explore these things, and oftentimes we see it as like the male kind of coming and initiating that conversation, which is cool too. But that's also another story of like, do men tend toward monogamy more than women? I like that conversation too. But anyway, back to this. So I will say, in my life, I was the one who was like, okay, Like, I'm gonna tell him he can still do this, and it's gonna be so much fun, and then I can still do that too, and then we're gonna come together, and it's gonna be so hot and sexy, you know? And I remember in that experience, like, even when I told him he could, he didn't. And that was something, now that I'm older, now that I'm 29, I realized, like, for me, it was probably some sort of test, because I would find me very hot if he took the initiative to, like, not really give a shit, and he did that and came back and was like, yeah, I'm gonna own this, and I liked it, and also I love you, because it feels very, like, dominant for me. It feels very like, yes, I'm initiating, but then he's going for it, and I love that. And I will also say, I actually was not expecting this to be as personal of a video as it is, but hopefully, like, my personal experience can help you. I had this recurring fantasy also of, like, I just want, without even me telling, like, a guy that, like, we're together, we're in love, and he goes out and he has sex with another girl, and he comes back and he tells me, because yes, I found it to be sexy. It was a turn on for me, but also because it was like, who am I in that situation? And I think I tend to be, oh my gosh, look how much you can see the shadow of my phone. Sorry if that bothers you. I don't really know how else to, I'm not a professional here. I'm just a professional yapper. Okay. So, also, who was I in that situation? You know, like, was it going to be different in my mind than it would be in real life? And yes, it is. I have learned that very well, but I'm grateful for all of those experiences, right? And I think that when we approach life with more curiosity and openness of, like, who will I be in this, versus, like, let me put every fear around it to keep it out because I'm scared of it, like, we realize, like, our capacity to hold things is really big. And even when we reach a moment where we feel over capacity, which is a nervous system thing, like, we can grow our capacity for that if we want to. Now, I will say, you don't have to be somebody who's like, I really want to be super edgy in a relationship, and I want to grow my capacity to hold, and I want to eroticize my jealousy. You don't have to do that. I have that personality. I have that wiring, maybe, in a lot of ways, but it's not the right way, right? It's just been it's just been my journey. So anyway, yeah, I was like, when I was young, it was like exploring, like, you can do that, but it wasn't actually, like, what I would say ethical, in the sense of, like, we didn't really know what we were doing. We didn't really have agreements. It didn't really work out the way we wanted it to, right? And so, you know, life happens, years go on. I went through a long period of celibacy, really, really beautiful. Maybe can talk about that in another video. But the last 5 years, I've been with my current partner, my primary partner, and this is when I've been able to really explore non-monogamy from a conscious approach, meaning we have dove so deep into creating our container and what works for us. What do I need? What does he need? How can that work together? What are our non-negotiables, and what are our things that we're like, okay, maybe, maybe not. Some of those have had to be created because we went past it and we're like, ooh, that doesn't work for me. And yeah, that has been scary. Sometimes that has been intense, but it has been such a growing experience, and I'm so grateful for that. And what do I want to say here? Like, in terms of, is it right for me? Like, all of us, if we grew up in the West, if we grew up in the West, where and I talk about this in a lot of the work I do with women in my courses, our only model, 95% of us, is monogamy. Our only model is, you have one soulmate out there, you are on a constant search for them. That soulmate is the opposite sex. And you get married and you live happily ever after, and that's what we see in movies, that's what we see in fairy tales. But the reality is the movie ends at happily ever after, but life doesn't end there. Life begins there. There's years and years and years after that. So what is actually happening there? You know what I mean? And so many of us, we are who we are because of how we were raised, because of the culture that we're in, because of the religion that we're in. And so many of us stick to that and we don't question it. And, you know, there was a time in my life where I was like, if somebody sticks to their culture and their religion and they never question it, and I do, I'm better than them. But the truth is, that's their journey and this is mine. Yeah. And that's a big thing, right? Because I would look to my parents like that sometimes, of like, why can't they question this the way that I do? Why am I the one, the black sheep, you know what I mean? But at the same time, that is their journey. And this is mine, you know? And with that being said, I just want to say that, like, the question of, is non-monogamy right for me? It's going to be a question for almost every single person who chooses non-monogamy in the Western world, because we don't have models of something else, right? We only have like, hey, I have these core desires and these turn-ons in me, and I have this like deep value of how I see love and relating, but it's opposing everything that I see and I learn, and I don't have models of it, and that's really scary. And that's so true, right? One of the biggest things for me, wait, before I say that, is like, if you feel the truth of this, it's like, yeah, you have to have a real passion for claiming your truth when it's scary, and being willing to live in that truth. And not everybody is going to do that, you know, but you can if you want to, and I will tell you that. And that is why somatic work, that's why I'm a somatic coach, and that's why I love somatic work so much, because when we don't have models for certain things, we don't have the capacity to actually hold them when they happen in real life. We can, our fantasies are very expansive, so we can expand into them very far, but our body and what our nervous system can hold, we have to grow our capacity for a lot of those things, especially when we haven't had models of them. Because it's like, oh my gosh, this thing is happening, like I'm exploring with another person, my partner's exploring with another person, and it's okay and it's good, but oh my gosh, is that right? Like how and it feels overwhelming, right? The nervous system, more than it works in good and bad, it works in big and little, right? And big things are like, is this safe to go here? Is this okay? And as we, you know, take it slow and resource ourselves and allow ourselves to feel the truth of each moment, and this is what somatic coaching is so good for, then we can grow our capacity to hold so much in life if we want to, if we want to do that. And also, like, let life be an experiment. Let life be your art project. Let life be like, and I love you to source, God, the divine, like, let it be a play. Like, and with that, and with that, like, that means, I don't know if it's right for you. Maybe you don't either, but you can play and explore and see, and you can mess up, and maybe you get hurt, and maybe you scrape your knee, and maybe it's really intense, but you grow in that so much, and you grow your capacity for love so much in that. And also, I will say, to continue this conversation, because of not having a lot of models, it's really important for those of us who choose this lifestyle to have community. For me, like, one of the biggest things was, I felt really lonely in my choices. I felt so lonely and so misunderstood for a long time. And now the closest people in my life are all in this lifestyle, and it is so needed for me. I need that. I need those examples. And the other thing I'll say about this is, the cool thing about any relationship, especially non-monogamy, is they're all different. So all of my, like, very close friends, we're in some sort of non-monogamous dynamic, but it's different. Some of us are very hierarchical. I like hierarchical non-monogamy, which means I'm queen, I'm number one, and everyone falls underneath me. Some people say, oh, that's not right. I don't care what you think is right, because this works for me, and I love my life, and I love I love this love. I love what I'm exploring. It works for me, and I'm claiming it. And if you don't like it, it's because you're not thinking about me, you're thinking about you. It's not about you, because it's my life, right? So some people really like hierarchy, other people don't. They want more poly, they want more like we're 50-50, you know what I mean? And, or like it feels like a very even playing field. Some people that I know, you know, they are monogamous with like the opposite sex, and then because they're bisexual, they can explore with the same sex. They've chosen those in their dynamic, you know what I mean? So the point there is the way that you set that up is you and your partner's doing. There isn't like, oh, am I doing it right because they're doing it this way? There is no right. So you're gonna need to start creating your own compass in that regard. I am very specific oftentimes about not even like, especially with clients, like explaining my own relationship guidelines and negotiations and rules, because I don't want them to think what I want is what they need, like, because it's not, you know what I mean? And so yeah, if this is right for you, you need to get ready to really carve your own path in that, but also to have some models of like, okay, they're doing it, but they're doing it their way, we're doing it, but we're doing it our way. It's so important. It is so important. And just to be reminded that you have a tribe and you're not alone, and that your truth is okay, you know? There's a lot of people that, I guess this could go into this conversation of like, well, I've been like kind of wanting to explore these dynamics, but it seems like it's always done in a way that's not like the guy has more power over the girl or this. And to that I say, that happens in monogamy a lot too. And it's not really a matter of the dynamic, I would say. It's more of a matter of like what feels ethical for us, what feels fair for us, and can we find a way to like create those agreements and live that life. But it's not like that happening is necessarily the fault of the dynamic. It's really the responsibility of the people involved to do it with integrity, right? So that is what I say to that. And I also want to say that like this is a big thing for me. If there are dynamics, there's a bunch of dogs barking, I don't know if you can hear them. If there are dynamics where the man is only, and actually I know both, I know couples who are both, where they're a man and a woman, and the man is only with the girl, and then the girl goes and has multiple partners, or vice versa, that is okay, because that is their truth. And one of the hardest people to have conversations with are the people who are like, that's not fair, it must be so hard for them. But what you're doing when you do this is you're assuming how they're experiencing that is how you would experience that. But they wouldn't experience it that way, because they're them and you're you. So if you really, really, really want to be of love and of service to other people, it's not always about actually putting yourself in their shoes. It's about understanding that their needs and desires can be worlds different than yours, and that's okay, and love and embrace that. That's what makes life beautiful. And because for so many people who choose non-monogamy, me being one of them, the point is freedom to be yourself in a container with another person. And so if one person has the capacity and the desire to be with more people than the other, and they feel good about that, that's beautiful. That's fucking awesome, and I love them for it. And so that is really important to remember. It is not about being even or equal or tit for tat. And I see that in monogamy all the time too. And it's like, oh, I went down on them, so they have to go down on me. Oh, they hooked up with one person, so I have to. If you're approaching that, you have no love in that approach. What you have is competition. And we're not meant to be competitors of our partners. We're meant to be on the same team. And that's what I would say to that. So that is my conversation about this. Jealousy is often a question here too. I would like to use that for another video of like don't you get jealous? How does jealousy come up? And you know what I will say to that is, in my experience working with couples, jealousy is as big as big of a thing in monogamy as it is in non-monogamy. It just comes up in different ways. And yes, jealousy does happen. And again, I'm the type of person who are like, oh my gosh, it's intense, but it's like I can translate that intensity to like, there's an aliveness to this. There's an eroticism to this. And like, can I live the truth of my jealousy, of my anger, of my frustration? Can I live the truth of what's beneath this that I'm really afraid of? And can I accept that even if that happens, like life will go on, or even if that happens, love can withstand it? And then also resource myself and my body somatically. And having a coach for that is great. I have it's not like I said, it's not specifically a video on jealousy, but I do have a jealousy workshop that's like 2 hours long. So if you're interested in that, you can comment workshop on this and I can send that to you. Or you can go to my bio and follow me on Instagram and DM me there and I can send it to you. But I think for now that feels like a good conversation of, is it right for me? And hopefully that can help you. And at the end of the day, it's really good to have, just remember, like, it's really good to have these conversations and an example, but at the same time, because of the culture that we're raised in, it's so much about being in tune with your body and your heart and knowing what that fear will come up, but being able to resource yourself that and stay anchored. And sometimes that looks messy, but that's the beauty of it, okay? Mwah. I hope you enjoy that. If you have any questions, let me know below. And yeah, I love you guys. Mwah.